Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a tempo to aggro-ish style forest, including the new cards. We have got Bagworm, Robo Golem, and things like that combo very nicely with the new traits, so that should be a lot of fun. Being able to at least utilize some form of forest deck. I had also created a few extra pieces that I was able to that I was missing, but outside of that, it should be pretty okay. Very kind of mediocre in my opinion for Forest, so we're going to get right into it and take a look. So I've never been a big fan of ForestCraft, but I do want to get into it at least a little bit so that I can get the gist of most of the stuff from it, and also, of course, play through to get to level 150. It's one of the only decks I haven't actually reached that maximum at. And it's also one of my least played decks. So we start off reasonably well for this deck. Water Fairy, Robo Golem, and of course Dual Fencer are really nice. Bagworm is actually really good too. Comboing with Robo Golem on turn 2 is quite good. You can also use it, of course, a little more mid-game where you want to have multiple cards played. Like in this situation, we're holding onto it to go with Dual Fencer, as it does make a very nice turn 4 play. And we have got a pretty okay curve at this point. I did decide to, of course, force out the Robo Golem Goblin here, though, to expand board instead. Since my opponent pretty much was letting me expand, and against Rune, that's not actually a bad thing to do. So now for some mass damage, or semi-mass damage, I guess. But overall, it's just playing a bunch of small things as rapidly as possible, then applying buffs where necessary and getting in any kind of damage possible. This was a very nice play on their part, being able to clean up a couple of things very easily. But leaving anything up against Forest is always a huge risk, and not one that I usually like to take myself. It took a little bit to actually clear this, but I was fine with that. Even just getting it to 1 health was worthwhile, because now it can't favorably trade against anything, and we can get some decent damage in. Plus, again, we're setting up a nice board, which is the main aim of this deck, to continually flood until you can expand. Unfortunately, though, I did seem to lack some draw, which was disappointing, but hopefully by the time you are lacking in that, you are already winning the game, since this is still a relatively early build of this deck. So Peerless Shot felt like the best move I could make. It's going to at least get me a draw. And Stored Falconeer is actually good. Being able to use that, expand more, and have a 3-drop to damage pressure to be able to throw to the board should be quite respectable. So we don't have a lot here, but we have got enough. These Mecha Lance Elves are actually great, since they don't die to battle themselves. Double Insight though, that's a little rough, but at least they didn't have an answer and did end up conceding. So overall, for a reasonable forest deck, I'm okay with this deck. I wouldn't say it's definitely the best possible forest builds out there, as most forest decks aren't that great in the current meta, in my experience at least. But that's fine. Robotic Bagworm, I always find that's a really good one to hold, since you just have a few really good options, even if you can't use it with things like Mecha Wing Angel. At least Mecha Wing Angel on its own, though, is an insane board flood. It's used in a lot of decks now that are running the new trait for the Mecha style cards, being able to attack with them. So as you can see here, even on turn 3, building a full board of 1/1s is usually not super easy. But thanks to these new cards, it becomes much more possible. Fortunately, they did have Arya's Whirlwind. That was a little unexpected. But we do have Queen of the Forest, And we're going to try and set up for the Peerless Shot next turn. 2 legendary fighters coming down is it's pretty mediocre, even with an Evo here. I mean, it does make them both targets, but the Peerless Shot on its own can deal with this very, very easily. There's actually very little risk. And we're pretty set up to go for Axemen as well, which is going to be pretty good. So overall, this curve is working out very favorably. Their own Peerless Shot though definitely put me on edge, since they are able to pretty much perfectly counter my last play, leaving me with just my 1-1. But top decking my own Peerless Shot at least should be able to turn this game back around in our favour. The only real damage would be if they had their own again. But at this point I think I've got plenty of value out of Peerless Shot. And we also have the double Bagworm, which means any good card we get should be able to be reduced pretty quickly. Queen of the Forest. This is no real shock. So we got the Axeman, which does trade. It's not the best way to go. I think these Elf is definitely better. We're going to get the 4 damage in and trade for this basically for free. Water Fairy and Cynthia Queenblade. Of course they're going to use that Evo on the Fairy since they do want to get rid of the 6-3 here. You can't afford to leave that thing up any time against Forest unless you can guarantee lethal. I really don't have a lot of options. I'd like to get rid of the 5-7, but that's just completely not possible here. Or at least not in any easy way. So the only real option I've got is to flood the board as much as possible, take advantage of any effects that I can, and really just go face where I possibly can. And we really need a 1-drop if we want to take advantage of Greenland Axeman next turn. Since we do need to play 3 cards. A Mecha Elf again though is definitely helpful. It does put them right within lethal range. Not a perfect lethal, but within range for next turn. Which they do end up realizing and abruptly concede. So this is definitely not my favorite overall deck so far, and I'm hoping that better Forest decks can be developed. This is reasonably expensive too as far as it goes. I mean, this variant is only running 8 legendaries, which is still right around the average, but it definitely doesn't feel good. Most of these legendaries are super specific outside of Technolord, which is running a few decks, and overall most of the Forest cards are gold, so not the most cost effective deck, and also not one of the strongest decks, but it does the job for what I need it for, and hopefully you guys, it will do alright with 2 if you already have the cards to build it. So if you want to check this deck out, the deck list will be in the description below. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time, see ya.